I'm Mark Dresner, and this is the Research Insider, a special interview series featuring experts and leaders at the forefront of market research and consumer insights. The Research Insider is brought to you by the Market Research Event, TMRE, the world's largest and comprehensive conference dedicated to elevating the business value of insights. Joining me today is Cundiff. He's the General Manager of Customer and Market Research at Microsoft. Reed, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Good to be here.
It's great to have you. Why don't we start with a question that a lot of people have been asking in research lately, and that is why do we need new or alternative data sets and data sources these days?
Sure. Let me approach it from a couple different ways. So the first thing that I think of when I think about the data types or sources that we want to have is that it's simply a natural evolution of how our discipline has evolved for decades. So if you think about it in terms of modality, going from face-to-face pen and paper to phone, phone to online, online to mobile, right? These are natural evolutions that have taken place. And thinking about what we bring into our stakeholders as we're trying to drive business impact, thinking about new data types is just a simple part of the natural evolution. The other side that I would look at is, as these new data sources are coming online, then the question is, if we don't look at how we can incorporate them into the insights that we bring to bear to our clients, to our internal stakeholders, then odds are somebody else will. And so let's think about doing that in a more integrated way, as opposed to having the insights that we bring sit in a silo that then sits next to another data silo.
Yeah, which and what kinds of data sources, insight sources that are emerging have your attention? What are we talking about? What interests you?
Well, there are several, but let me talk about two in particular. Yeah. One that we've been working on for a number of years to try and get our arms around and make meaning out of has been social data. Now, I don't think Microsoft is alone in believing that the information that exists in social data applies to our category and a variety of other categories. So that's something that we've spent several years trying to understand in detail, but in particular, not just understand volumetrics, not just understand what sentiment looks like around a given theme or category, but really understand how what's going on in social can relate to and in fact ideally predict what happens in the offline world. Social is one. The second area that I'd call out is behavioral data. Now, this is where it might be a little bit more unique to Microsoft and the categories that we play in, but we have a wealth of information that comes online, especially as we move into a services world, where we're able to gather data around how people are using our products at a pretty significant level of depth. Tying that with the perception data that we already pulled together can help us get a better understanding, a much more well-rounded picture of what's happening with a customer, with a competitor, within a marketplace as a whole.
Now, a lot of companies are struggling with the integration of those data sources. How do you pull them together? How do you go about doing that approach?
Yeah, so I'd say we are certainly in that list of companies who has struggled with it, so I would not say that our journey is complete by any means. Okay. But I'd say the first step for us is being comfortable with a variety of different approaches to integrating behavior and perception data. So even if it's at a journalistic way where we're able to just simply have data sets sit side by side, but they address the same business problem, for us, that's a step forward rather than just simply presenting one silo of information. Now, if we can get behavioral and perception data at a respondent level, which we've been able to do in a variety of different forms, then that's beneficial, and we certainly always strive for that. But even just making sure that our researchers understand where the bar is and what success can look like, and that it's frankly a journey, has been part of how we've been able to move forward with that.
Right. Can you share a specific example or two from your experience in the organization on how you've been able to, to integrate social or integrate behavioral data, for example? Or?
Sure. Let me pick up social first. Yeah. So one thing that, again, as I've talked about, we did not want to just look at social data to understand what's going on in the social sphere. Although certainly we do that to pick up themes, sentiment, et cetera. One of the things that we've been able to do is to look at social volume and sentiment within a given category, within targeting specific products, to be able to get a sense of what the future purchase intent and sales will look like for that product and that category as a whole. So we've been able to do this and validate it across a number of the categories that we play in for both ourselves and our competitors. And then that has real value besides simply explaining what's going on in social. And so that is where we're able to do a relatively complex modeling exercise. But then once you have that tested and validated, you're able to replicate that across a number of different areas.
Right, right.
One other area that I would call out has been some of the work that we've done in understanding product satisfaction. So if a typical product satisfaction survey for us would really skim the surface in understanding the stated behavior that folks have with a product as complex as Microsoft Office. So if you think about even standalone Outlook, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, the volume of interactions that you can have and the functionality that exists within any single one of those, much less all of them, is huge. And so you really won't get the level of depth or, in fact, accuracy of what the behaviors look like if you just look at that from a stated behavior in a survey. But if we're able to combine the behaviors that people opt in to share with us to be able to get a sense of how they're using the product every day, and then we link that with a survey that talks about their thoughts and feelings on that product, then we're able to get a much well-rounded picture of not just how they feel and what they think, but how their product interactions reflect that and how they bring that to bear. So that's enabled our product satisfaction research to go much, much deeper in prescribing what we think we need to build into the products, where we need to fix our customer experiences, and then how we need to engage with customers even more generally.
Yeah, I like the way how all of this links back to specific actions in the business. That's terrific. Do you have any final thoughts, since you mentioned sort of that holy grail in social? Any final thoughts on how to peel that onion or crack that nut, if you will?
Yeah, so there are a few things that I would look at that I think are really critical. The one is having the right skill set on the team. So if we just populated our team with quantitative market researchers and project managers, I don't know that we would have had the latitude to be able to try and tackle understanding social data, bringing in behavioral data. So it's required us to expand the skill set of our existing team, and in certain cases bring in other folks with different capabilities and competencies. The second thing is having the mindset to be able to learn and grow. This is a journey, and there have been a lot of road bumps along the way. And so the first time that we tried to marry behavioral and perception data, I would not call us phenomenally successful, right? So having that growth mindset to be able to say, there's opportunity space to learn and grow, and sometimes learning from our failures and sometimes learning from our successes, and viewing that as a journey, not as simply something that is a project that will get graded A through F at its conclusion. Those two things, skill set and mindset, have really helped us move forward.
Outstanding. One last thing, and that is when you and I were speaking before we sat down today, we were talking a little bit about sort of the role of the data scientist and you know, what sorts of core competencies and talents and even aptitudes kind of are brought to bear in that. And I was coming at it from what I understood to be one individual, and you had suggested that perhaps a team can replicate that same effect. Could you tell me a little bit about what you're looking at when you're building a team like that?
Sure thing. One of the things that we recognize that if we wanted to go on a journey to be able to bring in new data types, drive business impact to a higher degree than we had as a typical quantitative market research oriented team, we knew that we needed to have a variety of capabilities that we didn't have. In some cases, we wanted to be able to grow existing team members and have them expand their business acumen, communication skills, facility with certain data sets. But we also knew that finding one person who's able to do all of those things, communicate effectively, have that business acumen, be able to handle quantitative market research as well as integrate different data types, is a lot more difficult than creating a virtual team, right? Or small group teams, even just 4 or 5 people, where you had all those capabilities present and people were able to work collaboratively. Now, getting people to operate collaboratively is its own challenge as well. So we're not able to just shut the door, draw the blinds, and focus on our own data set.
Yeah.
But I would rather take on that challenge than try and find 75 or 100 unicorns out there who can do all that themselves. And so if we're able to function effectively as a multidiscipline team, then frankly, I don't think there's a whole lot we can't do in the insight space.
Absolutely fantastic. Reed, thank you so much for sharing this with us today.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
And that concludes this episode of the Research Insider. If you'd like to learn more about the Market Research event, please visit us online at www.themarketresearchevent.com. Until next time, I'm Mark Dresner, and you've just heard the Insight Scoop.